With just over 1 week to go until the 1st of July begins, it is time to be checking in on what the historical returns have been for the month of July and also compare it against the past couple months here, maybe even go over a setup or two at the very end of this video. Anyways, we'll just start off with content of the day right here, and we can see that all of these vertical bars correlate to past Julys in Bitcoin's history. And because it is a little bit zoomed out right here, you can't see too much, but 9 out of the past 14 Julys have closed positively from open to closure, giving it just over a 64.25%. Wouldn't really be like a strike rate, but just probability to close positively. Now, the average return for the positive closing months was just over 19.25%, and the average return, or the average loss, for the negative returning months was just under 9% actually. So what does this suggest just at face value looking at this? Well, it does suggest that if Bitcoin is going to continue to consolidate, we probably see a tightening range, still between about 60,000 to 70,000 bucks. We still have not seen anything really decided there ultimately. And as long as Bitcoin is above those May lows, I still do run with the assumption that the lows are in and that upside is still, probabilistically speaking, more likely, although certainly not a certainty with the way that June has gone right here. But let's compare this against June, because up until June, for the past almost year straight, every month, it felt like every month was playing out almost literally to the T in terms of what the average return statistics were suggesting over here. June thus far has been pretty uneventful. If we measure from open to current price, we can see that price has been in a very tight range here. Let me actually just pull this down so you can see. And we can see that thus far, it is literally less than a 4% move from open to current price. Very little has gone on, which does play into the greater idea that Bitcoin is slowing down here for summer. We're going to see an extended consolidation. People are going to get very, very bullish at any $1,000 move to the upside and very, very bearish at any $1,000 move to the downside. I see it everywhere right now, especially to the downside actually. And I think the reason why that is, and maybe I'm completely off on this, is because most people are probably playing altcoins, the shitcoin roulette. And what's happening with the shitcoins is that on any sort of Bitcoin sneeze, any Bitcoin 1% move to the downside, altcoins are just fucking suiciding. It's crazy. They're just jumping off the fucking ledge. So I think that's maybe where the super negative sentiment is coming from. But just, for perspective here, something that I was just thinking about earlier today. It's look, July this year versus July last year. July last year, Bitcoin was trading less than 50% from where it currently is. I mean, it's more than 2x up from 1 year ago. That's, I don't know, it's pretty good. It seems pretty good to me. Doesn't seem all that terrible. But hey, at the end of the day, I should have remained open-minded here. So yes, my point is that one, yeah, we haven't seen necessarily the end of June just yet, but in terms of returns, we are much less than you would expect anywhere close to the average right there. So a good indication that summer is probably going to continue to be slow. July does have somewhat similar statistics right here. The average return, again, for the positive closing months, just over 19%. So let's look at what that would look like in terms of price action, assuming that Bitcoin closes somewhere around here, around somewhere between 64 to 66,000 bucks. We'll just mark to the middle at 65, and 20% to the upside would put Bitcoin on new highs at 80,000 bucks. Obviously, that would play hand in hand with potentially the moon signal that we went over yesterday, which is always funny to talk about. And of course, to the downside, losing an average of 9%. Again, assuming Bitcoin closed somewhere around here, 9% just for reference would put Bitcoin basically back to 60,000 bucks, maybe slightly above 60,000 bucks, but very, 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 very close to 60,000 bucks, which I do think is certainly possible here, and would still be, for reference, high or low. Again, the stance that we have on this channel is that anything between 60,000 and 70,000 bucks is unchanged as far as a longer term narrative goes. Did I say 60 between 70? Yes, between 60 and 70. Just so hopefully I said that, because I think I said 60 and 60, which obviously is nonsensical. But yes, that's perhaps what we're looking at. Obviously, I'll update on this one in basically 1 week from now, because still there's about a week left to go in the month of June, and obviously things can change. But with the way that things are looking right here, Bitcoin probably going to close I think it'd be very poetic for Bitcoin to close basically at 65,000 bucks for the end of this month, just right in the middle of that fucking range, and just bore the ever loving shit out of people. Anyways, moving on from there. Speaking about boring, Saturday, very fucking boring, as it is the lowest volatile day for Bitcoin by a great margin, by a massive margin. Actually, the only day that's anywhere close is Sunday, as you would guess. It is a weekend, obviously. Now, theoretically speaking, Bitcoin does have a slightly higher probability to close positively on Saturdays than negatively at 58.33% of all Saturdays since 2024 began have closed positively. But the average returns here, both for the positive side and the negative side, are extremely minimal. For the positive side, like literally less than 1%, which, you know, I know is crazy for other markets, but for Bitcoin, very small. So spot 80% to the upside, not even 1% would put Bitcoin like 64,500 or 64,600, something like that. To the downside, the average loss been about 140, and that would put Bitcoin, for reference, basically on a retest of yesterday's wick low, maybe slightly lower than that. But ultimately, I don't really expect Bitcoin to probably test either side of that, or I guess 64.6 is certainly very possible here, but very likely to remain an inside bar between Friday's high and low. So I don't expect any major movements here. Really, this is all just preparation for the weeks to come. Moving on from there, I do want to get into the HPDR bands because we did see the weekly closure for CME, and the weekly did close very slightly, but it did close above the median right here. So I guess it does keep the Boolah's hopes alive in the short term. Obviously, where this opens up on Monday is going to be another target for price action. That's probably going to open a little bit lower if I had to guess. But very likely another wick test at minimum there during this next week. So that could be, depending upon where things kind of open up, a little bit of a short-term scalp setup. As far as the ranges go here, the 38.2 level is still, for reference, basically around the May lows at 57,000 bucks. Ideally, if this is going to turn around to be bullish, we want to see this step up big time coming in on Monday, hopefully above 60,000 bucks, and at that point, that's probably going to be wherever your next higher low would be. Obviously, if it remains here, or especially if it goes lower, got some problems. Probably a damn good indication that Bitcoin actually will break down, and then you really will have something to cry about. But as of right now, I don't see where the tears are coming from just yet. Anyways, moving on from there, I did forget to mention this. I think this one fired off. Yeah, this one fired off actually like a week ago. There was a daily setup for Bitcoin using the Krown quant automation service over here. Just one of the strategy templates. This is not something that I would trade myself, nor would I suggest anyone to trade it, but it does give a little bit of directional bias for YouTube videos. Now, in this case, we can see that the strike rate for this setup is 52% basically. So basically a coin flip. But whenever we have something like that, the real setup is actually in looking at the average winning trade versus average losing trade, and then also looking at the amount of bars on average in these trades, which you can see on the left hand side if I remove my face right there. But putting my face back on and looking at the average winning trade, just over 22.25%. Okay, that number's popped up a couple times now. We saw that on the silly moon setup yesterday, and then also we're seeing this for July returns. If things do propagate into that sort of time zone, and then also for the average losing trade, losing an average of just over 8%. Again, very much in alignment with yesterday's setup, and even in alignment with of course the July average loss at 8.80. So, we do see some confluences right there. And then most importantly, maybe not most importantly, but also of importance, the average amount of bars in winning trades is 14. This is a daily time frame, by the way, so that'd be 14 days versus the average amount of bars in losing trades, which would be 6. So the longer that this one goes on from 6 and closer towards 14, the more and more likely, theoretically, this will be a winner, thus indicating that the upside is more likely. But as of right now, we have seen from that open to current date, 9 days transpire. So we're getting close to the average for the winning trades. We are certainly over the losing trade average. So with each and every passing day here that Bitcoin really fails to break down below its current, let's call it 64,000 bucks area on a daily closing basis, the more and more this one probably does actually end up trying for an upside move, I suspect it's probably not going to go for the average positive return. If it does, I think at best, maybe not at best, but this one's probably going to close on any sort of retest of above $70,000 basically. So, things are getting tight here, things are getting boring, and that's kind of what you do expect during summer. I still recall back to about a month ago now, at the very beginning of June, that first Friday was really Bitcoin's chance, if it was going to take a leg up and really continue on with this current rally immediately rather than go for a long summer consolidation. We would have seen it there. We did not see it there. We saw a rejection there, which is why on this channel we've been, more or less expect some more sideways, baby. Expect some more sideways. Try not to get super caught up into like these, relatively short moves, because I do see sentiment getting like really, really crazy. And again, for reference, at least for Bitcoin, I mean, nothing's like that crazy here. I mean, just yet, it's in the middle of it's basically in the middle of a $10,000 range, slightly closer to the bottom of that, to be fair. But yeah, as of right now, Bitcoin's still resting on the 50% retracement, which is 63,900 basically. You can see several tests down into that region throughout this past week, but still no closures below. So, have to kind of give this level, I guess, a little bit of a chance more. If Bitcoin does fail, if you start to see closures below, expect Bitcoin to head down somewhere between 61 to 62,000 bucks. And I think that would be the Bitcoin Boolah's last chance for hopium on a higher low. Below there, you really have to be getting ready for an extended stay below 60,000 bucks. But for right now, still see two major areas that very well could be that next higher low if you do want to be bullish. But even if it is a higher low, just for what's the word that I'm looking for? The word that I'm looking for is not popping up in my mind right now. So I'll just say, for example, it's still going to take a long time. I mean, if Bitcoin were to dig in, let's say anywhere between these two regions. Whoops, let me get my damn drawing tool out right here. Motherfucker, you bastard, just let me draw. I want to draw my charts again. Anywhere between here, it's still, in terms of timing, it'd probably take a long time. It'd probably take something like that, which would certainly take us through the end of July and probably into August, and set it up for like a Q4 or end of Q3 to beginning of Q4 breakout to the upside, which, is certainly not unheard of in Bitcoin cycles. So yeah, anyways, I think that's where I'll end on this video. Get a nice little boring Saturday, but we'll continue on with the story tomorrow. Actually do a little bit of a shorter live stream tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And other than that, I want to wish you the best of best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.